Several changes are reported to be taking place this week, and some in the medium term when it comes to the ceasefire between Hamas and Israel. The short-term changes are going to start from tomorrow. Tomorrow, we're expected to see a midweek prisoner exchange between Israel and Hamas. This is something that hasn't happened since the beginning of the ceasefire. However, there were certain violations coming from Israel and attempts to hinder the ceasefire that led the Palestinian resistance to have another prisoner swap round during this week. During this prisoner swap round, there will be 30 Palestinian children released from prison, and in total 110 are going to be released tomorrow. One of the most prominent figures who will be released tomorrow is Zakaria Zbeidi. Zakaria Zbeidi is the previous leader of the armed wing of the Fatah movement in the West Bank, Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades. He tried to escape prison several years back, but Israel captured him again alongside some of his colleagues. The prisoners who will be released tomorrow, some of them will be independent, some of them will be members of the Fatah movement, some of them will be members of the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, the PIJ, and Hamas. Over 30 of them, just over 30 of them, have life sentences, whilst others have maximum sentences in prison. So this week we're expected to see 2 prisoner swaps in total, one taking place tomorrow and the other taking place on Saturday or Sunday. In the meantime, and in the more medium term or longer term when it comes to the ceasefire, there has been a very interesting report in Israel about the prospect of making this ceasefire shorter in the form of completing it in a shorter term. Israel previously said that this will be a multi-phased ceasefire. However, much of the details when it comes to the ceasefire were not released because Benjamin Netanyahu did not release any of the details of the ceasefire to the public, indicating that this whole deal is a defeat for Israel. It's not something that they're proud of. Benjamin Netanyahu did not release it because it includes all of the demands of Hamas and the Palestinian side. But this report was speaking and quoting one of the prisoners of war in Gaza, one of their family members, who was speaking to a member of the delegation in the talks about who's going to be released and when are they going to be released. Senior figures in the negotiating delegation, including some tough questions about the political leadership inside of Israel and worries coming from the families of the prisoners of war that Benjamin Netanyahu will do something to explode this whole deal. Now, one of the key things that were very interesting is the fact that this senior member of the negotiating delegation told this parent, and both of their names were hidden. They did not wish to publish their names because of the sensitive information released and all of that. He said, we actually might have everything sorted in a shorter while. That means if we go to phase 2 in the ceasefire, and the talks are already prepared and taking place when it comes to phase 2 of the ceasefire, we don't really need to go to phase 3 because we can implement everything in phase 2. Now, of course, Israel did not want to initially have a whole agreement all at once, although the Palestinian side was fine with it. But now that the big early phase of the war, that the first phase is got in, we will launch the ceasefire. There are more talks of, okay, let's get it over and done with then, including the complete ceasefire and the complete withdrawal from the Gaza Strip by the Israeli terror forces occupying parts of Gaza. Although, of course, they have now gotten out of most areas that are populated inside of Gaza. They're only in the buffer zone and in parts of the Philadelphia corridor, and they're expected to be going away and withdrawing completely from those areas soon. An interesting point that the senior member of the negotiating delegation told this family member in Israel is that Hamas will not be releasing all of our prisoners of war in Gaza unless we completely withdraw from Gaza. And there will be no talk about the day after. We won't be dictating what happens in Gaza in the day after. That means that everyone in the negotiating delegation and the senior politicians inside of Israel, including Benjamin Netanyahu, they know that they have to withdraw. They know they're going to have to end the war, and they know that they will lose everything that they considered to be an accomplishment inside of Gaza, although nothing that they've done is an accomplishment in Gaza. The only thing that they've done is complete destruction and every single thing to harm the normal average Palestinian citizen inside of the Gaza Strip. However, what this report confirms is that there are indeed attempts to have an all-out solution when it comes to the region, when it comes to the West Asian region. The American administration knows very well by now that to achieve this normalization, to have Saudi Arabia, for example, having a peace treaty with Israel, to de-escalate the tensions, we need to deal with the Palestinian cause. And this is not only connected with the Palestinian cause too, it's connected with Syria, it's connected with other parts too. Recent reports confirm that Donald Trump his administration told his Israeli counterparts that they're going to be withdrawing from Syria. And Israel was very worried about that. In Syria, things are moving very quickly. More talks about merging everyone in the government and under the government umbrella, a new army consisting of all of the armed groups. Everything is moving really fast. And the fact that Donald Trump is already signaling to Israel that we're going to withdraw is worrying Israel very much. But despite that, Donald Trump's administration and the US administration know very well that if they do indeed intend, again, assuming that they intend to have quiet, because usually when it comes to the foreign policy of the United States and its allies, it was war and conflicts in Palestine, in West Asia, and other parts of the world too. But they know that they cannot go over the Palestinian cause to reach normalization and make Israel this country that they want it to be. Now, after Al-Aqsa flood and after Hamas and the Palestinian people proved themselves and stood up against the world's biggest superpower, the biggest terror superpower, and its little pariah supremacist entity committing genocide and massacres against the Palestinian people, after the Palestinians went through all of that, so they realize now that we have to speak with the Palestinians. Again, this is something that we spoke about yesterday when it comes to Steve Witkoff and him not meeting only Saudi officials but also Palestinian officials when it comes to the day after. And the fact that Witkoff and the US envoys, the administration representatives, are moving from Qatar to Saudi Arabia, to Israel, and then Steve Witkoff was reported to be in Gaza, by the way. They haven't confirmed when or where exactly he was because of the nature of his visit, but some reports in Israel said that he was there already today. And there was a lot of censorship surrounding his visit because of the nature of the visit. All of these things are indicating that something is cooking, and the fact that even these reports coming from senior figures in the delegation inside of Israel are showing that there's a very strong movement when it comes to de-escalating the situation. The question is, how successful will things be with this increased tensions in Jenin? Now, Israel is trying to portray this Jenin action that they're conducting now, this terror in Jenin. They're trying to say that we're going to be there for a very long term. The Israeli Foreign Ministry, Israel Katz, and other prominent figures in the Israeli government are saying we're going to have to permanently stay in Jenin because we need to make sure, no one attacks us in Jenin. However, based on the Israeli statements that we heard in the past 15 months, and if you go back further in history, many of the Israeli statements when it comes to we're not going to be withdrawing, have later proven to be false. Israel previously said we're never going to withdraw from Sinai. They said we're not going to withdraw from Lebanon. They said we will not be withdrawing from Gaza. And during this war, they said we will not be withdrawing from other parts of Gaza again, the Netzarim corridor and the Philadelphia corridor. Those things indicate that Israel is not really serious when it talks, but all of their statements are just to show. And if there is a solution that will be imposed on them from the United States administration, they're going to have to withdraw at the end of the day. The fact of the matter is Donald Trump forced Benjamin Netanyahu to sign this agreement that Joe Biden tried to push Netanyahu to sign, and Benjamin Netanyahu and his government are withdrawing from Netzarim and withdrawing from other parts. And many people in Israel, well, the majority of them are supporting the ceasefire, but many who supported the expansion of the war before as well, they're criticizing the government. Tomorrow, the other thing that's going to be very different as well is, for the first time since the ceasefire, the people who will be released, the Israeli prisoners of war, are going to be released from different locations. And that is primarily due to security measures that the Palestinian resistance is taking. Two of those who will be released tomorrow are held by Al-Quds brigades, the armed wing of the PIJ, and one of them is going to be released by Al-Qassam brigades, the armed wing of Hamas. Israel said today that they're expecting a military parade by the Palestinian resistance tomorrow. And the other thing is, due to the fact that the three of them who will be released released in different times, we're most likely talking about different locations too, and Israel is already prepared for that. So we're likely to see a situation where one will be released in the morning, one in the afternoon, and one later, or they could be very close together, but in different parts of Gaza.